In this video, I want to explore a model called Enterprise Canvas, which is a checklist for making sense of services. In fact, we treat everything as a service in Enterprise Canvas. So the starting idea is that for anything, there is a tension. Whenever we want to do anything, there is a tension between what we have, the realized ends, as opposed to what we want to get towards, which is our desired ends. And to make that happen, we need some means to make that happen, which we might call a service. But that's the means by which something can happen. That's a service. We're creating a service for ourselves. We're serving our needs. Now, in reaching towards making our needs happen, we may call on someone else. We might call a supplier, classically. And likewise, when we're working towards our ends, we might be able to help someone else. That's what we would call a customer. And you'll notice that it's completely symmetric. A customer may have a customer, a supplier may have a supplier. So it's working in a completely consistent way. Now, in the same way that we have our desired ends, our supplier has their own desired ends. They're reaching towards their own ends as well. And the same is true for our customer. And one of the things that makes it work is that there is some kind of connection between what we're reaching towards and what our customer is reaching towards, and the same from the supplier side. They're not necessarily the same desired ends, but there will be some relationship between them, usually a connection of values. Vision and values are shared in some way. So to make sense of our own services and service relationships, we need to look at what those values connections are. This is a flow of value. We're creating value in some way for someone else at the same time as building towards making ours. So it's a flow of value that continues onward in both directions. Now, when we look at this, we can start saying, well, the stuff that we need to do before we create value, that's, for example, the value proposition is a classic example of that. How we propose to deliver value. Some people describe value proposition as being a fancy name for your services or products. Well, no, because it's connecting the value to the values, connecting to the story that it makes it up. So, and we also have stuff that follows after. So, for example, that's what we might call value governance. We'll come back to that in a moment. But we then have other supplier-facing services, services that are facing the stuff coming in, and services that are facing the customer side, stuff going out. So there are interactions. So when we look at the supplier, they're actually the same as well. They have their own value proposition, their own value production, the value creation. And the same is true on the customer side. So again, it's completely symmetrical. It's just everything is a service which we view in the same way. So there are interactions that happen before a service delivery, which very much go both ways. This is, for example, procurement, and that's marketing, building a sales relationship. There's a main flow that happens during the transaction, and there's a kind of flow that typically happens afterwards, such as in a commercial environment, you get paid or you pay your supplier. So another video that we have on this set is about the service cycle, about what happens during these interactions. There's a connecting to the overall purpose, connecting to a conversation, connecting to building relationships, running the actual transaction, and then unpacking it all the way back so that we make sure we've done a completion in relation to the story. So there's an overall flow there. Now, between each of these services, whenever there is a boundary, there is going to be some kind of product. It denotes the boundary. So, for example, we're passing a product through here to use in our service. We're passing products around brochures and so on. We're passing bills and so on, and bills, invoices and payments. are going through there. So these are products which are static things, as opposed to services which are activities. So this side is outgoing facing, this is the incoming facing, and you can see it's exactly the same. But it also means that each of these is a service in its own right. So we can look at these as being a service, which has, if it's a service, it has the same structure internally as well. There are services that are coming in, there are interactions that are going both ways there. It's providing services, that's coming back in. So it's fractal in that sense. Exactly the same patterns happens exactly the same way. Every service contains other services. In fact, even within here, there is going to be services within services, which is what we often call about a decomposition of services, or an aggregation as it comes together. So we can look at every interaction, every service in exactly the same way, regardless of scope, scale, content or context. It provides us with a completely consistent way of making sense of service relationships. So that's the core of Enterprise Canvas. In the next video, we'll look at how governance happens, how management happens, what the relationships are, for example, with investors and beneficiaries. So this is the core of everything seen as a service. It provides a checklist that we can make sense of what's going on. We look for what are the realized ends, the desired ends, what are the connections of values that connect us to our suppliers and customers. What are the products that are going to occur at the boundaries? What are the means by which we deliver value, by which we deliver value to others or bring in value from others? So it's a simple checklist that we can use for any type of service. I say the next part we'll look at this in more detail, how the actual governance and coordination happens. But that's for something for the next video. For here, we've just got this overall checklist about how everything works together. Thanks for watching. Do look at the YouTube description for links to further detail. And don't forget to subscribe for other videos, and also to support us on Patreon to help us produce these videos and the tools themselves.